Have you ever felt like you were screaming, "I love you," into a void? You spend hours cleaning the house. You cook a perfect meal. You fix that leaky faucet. You believe these actions are the clearest possible evidence of your love. But at the end of the day, your partner looks at you and says, "You never tell me you love me." Or maybe you're the one who is constantly speaking words of love. You praise, you encourage, you write sweet notes. But they sigh and say, "I just wish you'd help me with the dishes for once." That feeling, the one where your effort seems to vanish into thin air, is excruciating. It makes you wonder, are we even speaking the same language? The answer, in a very real way, is no. And over the next 18 minutes, I'm going to show you why realizing you're speaking the wrong language is the most hopeful first step toward rebuilding a connection you thought was lost. This isn't just about the 5 love languages. This is about becoming fluent. Most of us have heard of Dr. Gary Chapman's 5 love languages: words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And the old paradigm, the way most people approach it, is flawed. We take an online quiz, discover we're a quality time person, and our partner is acts of service. And then we use that information like a report card. We start keeping score. I did the dishes for you, so why won't you sit down and talk to me? This approach turns a beautiful concept into a tool for transaction. It focuses entirely on getting what you want, and that's why it so often fails. Today, we are shattering that paradigm. Think of it this way. Your primary love language is your native tongue. It's easy, it's automatic. You don't have to think when you speak it. But your partner might speak an entirely different language. The new paradigm, the concept we call love language fluency, isn't about demanding they learn your language. It's about you, consciously and with effort, deciding to learn theirs. It's not a personality test. It's a learning journey. It shifts the focus from "what are my needs" to "how can my love be fully felt?" Let's quickly define these 5 languages, not as boxes, but as expressive dialects of the heart. Words of affirmation isn't just "I love you," it's specific, sincere praise like, "I really admire how patient you were with the kids today." Quality time isn't just being in the same room, it's undivided presence, phones away, eyes focused completely on each other. Receiving gifts isn't about materialism, it's the tangible symbol of a thought. "I was thinking of you when we were apart." A single wildflower, a favorite chocolate bar. Acts of service is love turned into action. It's filling up your wife's gas tank because you know she has a busy morning. And physical touch, it goes far beyond intimacy. It's holding hands on a walk, a spontaneous hug, a reassuring hand on the small of their back. Why does one action mean the world to one person and remain almost invisible to another? The answer lies deep in our psychology and our upbringing. Our love language is often shaped by what we felt was missing in childhood, or by the way our parents most effectively showed love to us. If a child grew up in a home with very few encouraging words, they may crave words of affirmation as an adult. If their parents were always busy, quality time might become their most precious currency. Our brains learn to associate these specific behaviors with safety, value, and love. So when you speak the wrong language, it's not just a minor misunderstanding. To your partner's nervous system, it can feel like their love tank is running on empty, even while you're trying your hardest to fill it with a different kind of fuel. I can hear you thinking it, but I'm just not a words person. Trying to do that feels fake. Or my partner is physical touch, but I'm not a touchy-feely person. This is a valid concern, and the answer lies in the difference between being inauthentic and being intentional. Inauthentic is saying something you don't mean. Intentional is stretching beyond your comfort zone to love someone in a way they can understand. Think back to the language learning metaphor. When you first learn Spanish, your phrases will be clumsy and unnatural. Saying, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" might feel robotic. But you're not doing it because you're fake, you're doing it because you want to connect. Over time, with practice, it becomes more natural. The initial awkwardness is the price of intimacy. Let me tell you about Mark and Emily. Mark was a native acts of service speaker. He showed love by doing. He fixed the roof, he landscaped the yard, he made sure Emily's car was always maintained. To Mark, his home was a love song built with his hands. Emily, on the other hand, spoke fluent words of affirmation. She longed to hear that she was valued. She needed to hear, "I'm so proud of you," after a hard day at work. For years, they lived in a loop of frustration. Mark would spend all Saturday fixing the fence, exhausted but satisfied, only for Emily to ask, "Do you even love me? You never say it." Mark would feel confused and resentful. "I just spent 8 hours in the sun for you. Isn't this fence proof enough?" They loved each other, but their love was getting lost in translation. Emily's love tank was empty. Mark's efforts felt unappreciated. This isn't a small problem. This is the kind of quiet erosion that can destroy a relationship from the inside out. The universal truth is that we don't just need to be loved, we need to feel loved. And Mark and Emily weren't feeling it until they realized they needed a translator. So, how do we get from recognizing the problem to actually becoming fluent? This isn't about reading a book. It's about intentional practice. We call this the Fluency Blueprint. As mentioned, your first step is to become an anthropologist in your own relationship. For the next 24 hours, go on a detective mission. Carry a small notebook or a note on your phone. Your job is to observe and record, not to judge or act. Find the answers to 3 questions. 1. What does your partner complain about most? "We never go anywhere" could be a clue for quality time. 2. What do they request most often? "Can you just hold me for a minute?" is a direct signal for physical touch. 3. How do they show love to others? If they are always doing little things for their parents, that's likely their native tongue. At the end of 24 hours, you'll have a working hypothesis. You'll have data. You can't learn an entire language overnight. You start with basic phrases. For the next week, pick one small, low-stakes action that aligns with their suspected language, and do it every single day. If it's words of affirmation, send one text every morning. A specific one like, "Good luck on your presentation today. You've prepared so well and you're going to be great." If it's acts of service, make them coffee in the morning without being asked. If it's physical touch, hold their hand for 5 minutes while you watch TV. The goal here isn't a grand gesture, it's consistency. You are building a new habit, sending small, consistent signals in their language. This is where true fluency begins. After you've stabilized the system with small actions, it's time for immersion. Immersion means looking for opportunities to speak their language organically throughout the day. It means learning the dialects of that language. For example, quality time isn't just romantic dates. It can also be going to the grocery store together without your phones, turning a chore into a point of connection. Physical touch isn't just about the bedroom, it's a light tap on the shoulder as they walk by. It's sitting close enough that your knees touch. This is the stage where you start to think in their language. Before you act, you ask yourself, what is the version of this act that partner's name would feel most deeply? This is when love moves from instinctual to intentional. This is where the magic happens. Let's go back to Mark and Emily. After Mark's realization, he started his Hello World project. He set a reminder on his phone for 3 p.m. every day. Tell Emily one thing you admire about her. It felt awkward at first, but then he saw her eyes light up. He saw her shoulders relax. His words, imperfect as they were at first, were being heard. And Emily, realizing his actions were his love songs, started saying, "Thank you for taking out the trash. I know you were tired, and it really means a lot to me." She began to respond in his language. They didn't change who they were.
They simply learn to translate their love. The journey from disconnection to connection is not an easy one, but it begins with a simple decision: the willingness to learn a new language, not because you have to, but because the person you're speaking to is worth being understood. You have the map. You have the first steps. The choice is now yours. That feeling of empowered clarity you're feeling right now, that is power. Don't let it fade. In the comments below, I want you to share one thing. What is the hardest foreign love language for you to speak and why? Sharing that truth is the first step to becoming fluent.